Whenever we do work together, we get called a bit of a double act, don't we?
Yeah.
Because quite often I'm the one there I don't look very prim and proper when I'm doing things. I look a bit like a gangly Bambi. And you just always look glam.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Grave Secrets podcast. I can't believe it's the first episode already.
I know, it feels so surreal because we've been talking about it for so long now.
We've been planning this for months, haven't we now? It feels like it's been so long.
Well, it was pre-Christmas really, wasn't it? Because we had a drunken conversation at Christmas where we suggested it might be a good idea.
At the Christmas party.
Yeah. And then it's actually come to life, which is very exciting.
So here we are. We're your hosts. I'm Annie.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to give you a little bit of a introduction to us, aren't we, really? So get to sort of meet your hosts.
Yeah, I think everyone knows that it's going to be true crime related, but everyone's been asking what we're actually going to talk about. Yeah. So we thought we'd give you a bit of an intro and just so you know what to expect from each episode that's going to be coming up. So if we talk them through it, I think what the main reason behind the podcast is, yes, there are a lot of podcasters out there that talk about true crime cases, but not a lot of them work within the forensics field. Yeah,
I feel like we've got a bit of like inside knowledge or technical knowledge because of our sort of line of work. So I feel like it just fits hand in hand and it made sense for it to be a true crime podcast, didn't it? I mean, we're both true crime enthusiasts, aren't we?
Also love talking.
Yes.
Which also helps.
And you love your storytelling.
Yeah. So we just figured it made sense. So in terms of what you can expect on an episode basis, we're going to cover true crime cases. We're going to try and do UK based where we can, local where we can. We're up north.
Oh, there's a lot of cases around here that I want to cover. And I keep seeing them and sending them over, don't I? Saying, can we do this one? This is our next one. Or
and in fact, there have been a couple now that we've both sent to each other on different platforms and then been like, okay, we'll definitely do that one. So local cases, UK cases. We are going to look at some of the bigger ones as well. So it won't just be UK based. But then as well as that, I think, like Annie said, we do have some of that insider knowledge. So we want to actually just cover forensic topics, don't we, really? So whether it be blood spatter or...
Yeah, we're hoping we can give you a little bit of a deeper insight into forensics than other true crime podcasts might do. So we're hoping that's what's going to maybe make us different.
Yeah. And then as well as that, where possible, we're going to get some guests in to talk to us. So we can just pick their brains about what they've been up to, how they got to where they are in their career, and some of the things they've experienced.
Again, also like all police and forensic based. We've met some really good people, haven't we, even through work and just along the way that work in different areas of forensics that you wouldn't even really think about,
or even know is a job, or how you would get into the job. I think a lot of the time we come across people that work in something and you think, it completely makes sense that that's a role, but you don't really know how you would ever get into that role.
How do you even begin to start doing that?
So we're going to talk about things like that as well. And then on top of that, because we are just true crime enthusiasts, we're probably going to have a few episodes where it's just us discussing either what we've been up to work-wise, what we might have watched on Netflix
or listened to.
And then again, we have got some exciting trips planned, I think.
Haven't we? Yeah.
So hopefully we'll be able to talk about things like that as well.
Because even this morning when we were both getting ready, I was sending you things like, oh my God, I'm just watching this while I'm getting ready. I feel like our whole life is crime. So I get up and I watch true crime on Netflix while I'm getting ready. I get in the car, listen to true crime podcasts. I go to work and basically do true crime. And then it's the same again. And before I go to bed, I always put a podcast on.
Well, this is the thing. So 2 things to mention there. One is that I've had a couple of people say, what if you end up falling to sleep whilst you're talking about it? Because I often fall asleep listening to documentaries.
I do.
Now, I've had a lot of people say that that's strange because obviously these are really serious topics that we're going to cover, and true crime as much as it's interesting, some people like us can fall asleep to it.
Yeah.
But I've actually researched this, and it turns out that the reason that some people are more susceptible to listening to things like that to get to sleep to is actually, it's a bit depressing, but you've got a baseline level of like anxiousness.
Right.
And apparently if yours is naturally higher, then actually listening to depressing stuff chills you out because it matches your natural kind of...
I did see something on Instagram, so mine's not exactly the same research as what you've done, and it was saying that people who listen to true crime to fall asleep or to relax and unwind do have psychopathic tendencies.
Oh,
so obviously I don't know where this study's been done because I did see it on Lad Bible on Instagram. So, we can't take that for granted. Yeah, but you'll see us on camera every week if you're watching on YouTube, and we are sort of a little bit similar in some ways, but very different in others. So you can see today, Beth is all colourful and she's matching, and you're always really bright.
Yeah, but I've actually tried to tone it down because obviously we are talking about things that are quite serious. So I don't want to be, usually I'm like bright pink and green and purple. So this is actually quite toned down for me. But I think our mugs, we are avid tea drinkers, so you won't see an episode where we're not drinking tea, but we have these Stanley cups here and I think they go to show our personalities.
I was like, let's give Beth the most eccentric cup that I've got, and it's black, white and red,
but somehow the clashing still works.
Yeah. So I've got the neutral one. So you'll always see me sat here, basically all wearing black or neutral colours. That's just me. And Beth is the colourful one out of us two.
And he's the glam one.
Glam and colourful. I think that goes together quite well.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So you will see that we work together I would like to say daily basis, but our hours don't work like that for work, do
they sometimes don't match up where we're working with each other every day.
No, but whenever we do work together, we get called a bit of a double act, don't we?
Yeah.
Because quite often I'm the one there that's... I don't look very prim and proper when I'm doing things. I look a bit like a gangly Bambi, and you just always look... glam, so it's quite hilarious.
I wouldn't say glam all the time for work, but yeah,
it's quite funny when we walk into places, because when we're putting kit up and stuff, you always have like an air of knowing what you're doing, and I get there in the end, but it looks very...
You said that right, an air of knowing what I'm doing. I come in, I'm like, right, let's get all this organised, let's get this sorted. I'm always very calm, but yeah, it's sometimes you just have to fake it till you make it, don't you?
And it always works.
It does. So that brings us quite nicely on to talking about the place where we actually met. So we both work for Think Forensic, and I'll let you do a bit more of the description.
The spiel on Think Forensic. Yeah, so Annie and I both work for Think Forensic. We'll do how we got into that in a moment, but just to talk about the company for a second, because we are very passionate about it, to be honest, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think for me, I never expected to be working for a forensics company. If I'm honest, I didn't like science, but Think Forensic does so much more than just forensic science at its purest form, I think.
Yeah.
So effectively, the company was started by a fabulous lady called Sue, and Sue worked for the police force and wanted to try and instill a level of understanding in young kids and youth offenders. So actually work with youth offenders and would get it was amazing really, the scene that they would create. And they would get 2 crashed cars. Have you seen the pictures?
So I actually worked there.
Did you? On when that first one?
Yeah. Well, not on her very first one, but I worked there when they did the crash investigation.
Yeah.
And we'd go into, usually it was secondary schools that we'd work with. And on the playground, there'd be a car set up and there'd be someone in a car, and the fire brigade would actually work with us as well. And when someone called the fake fire brigade, but they were actually real, they came, they'd come and they would cut someone out of the car, and it was like a scenario that was set up, and we got all different people working for the company as we have now, but sort of in a bit of a different way. We got some people who had been in car crashes, who had been injured, and they'd be there to tell their story. We had people who had been in prison before, so they could tell sort of their prison story and their drug story. And it was sort of in the hopes that it was going to educate the younger people that this is what actually happens when people go around, like speeding, joyriding, committing crimes, and these were the consequences.
Yeah, there's a lot of repercussions, and I think a lot of criminals, both in adulthood and childhood, that commit crimes aren't fully aware of the repercussions.
Yeah.
I think it's like with a lot of things, we don't always think about, what effect it might have on other people. But it was just a really good way of getting all of those people involved to create one scenario which really showed people the impact that actions had.
Yeah.
So that's effectively the beginning of the company and how it all started. But because there was so much kit and because there was so much forensic equipment that needed to go into it, they then needed a place to hold it all, which is where the crime scene centre was.
So I was actually there for the first ever crime scene centre, which wasn't where we are now.
No, it's the one that got flooded, didn't it?
Yes, it was in Huddersfield. And I remember going there, I think I must have been 20 or something like that. So it was very early on. And because we were doing a lot of forensic work on these days where we were going in and educating, I think forensics started to sort of develop and get more popular, didn't it? All of a sudden, I feel like there was just a big boom.
Pretty quickly.
And it just like came onto the scene, and all of a sudden everyone wanted to know about forensics. And a lot of people were asking Sue about the forensic side of it, and because she'd been in the police and we were working with some CSIs and some ex-police officers, and they were saying, oh, well, you've showed us some about fingerprinting. Could we do more on this?
Yeah.
And that's how I think forensics sort of developed over the years.
And I think it was a lot to do with the kids that were getting involved as well. Like a lot of the kids were then going back to school, talking about what they'd seen, talking about what they'd done. And teachers then said, well, hang on a minute, like I'm a science teacher. And quite often kids are a bit disengaged. Like I said, I never enjoyed science.
Yeah.
But there wasn't that extent of the practical element.
Yeah.
So this is perfect for teachers because they go, actually, this, if we get them in, they will have a love for it like they haven't before. Yeah. So over the years, it's developed. So now we go into schools, colleges. Quite often we'll go to universities. We're going down to London in a couple of months.
Yeah.
And that's during the week work. We also have scout groups, brownies, WI. Everyone, effectively, is interested in it.
I'm normally doing the sort of secondary school and universities because that's where I feel like my expertise is more. I can talk about it more in a little bit more depth, whereas the primary school side of it and the teaching side isn't like my primary thing.
No.
So I feel like you are very much a good teacher with the younger kids as well.
Yeah, I like just the excitement.
Yeah, whereas I prefer the older ones that know what they're talking about and I
listen.
and I can just talk to them normally as I'm just talking to you now and they think, oh yeah, that she's actually made an impact on me.
Yes.
And I like it when you leave a school or a college or a university and people say, they come up to you at the end and say, I want to go into what you're going into, or, oh, you've inspired me to now go to university, or what GCSEs do I now need to get? What do I need to work on at school? And I feel like it's nice to know that you have made a difference. And I specifically try and get a lot of the young girls interested in science because I feel like when I was at school and you said, oh, a scientist, you would instantaneously say, this, you would expect it to be a man, sort of oldish man with crazy hair and the white lab coat. And now I just like the sort of, there is a lot of females in science at the moment. And I try and like tell people that in schools that it's not such a male dominated area anymore.
It doesn't have to be. Yeah.
And you can look and be how you want to be, still do all the things you want to do and dress how you want to be.
Did you ever
be a scientist?
Did you ever watch Recess as a kid?
Yes, I did.
So there was a girl on Recess and she had like ginger hair, long pigtails, and big glasses.
Yeah.
And she always looked like a really pretty nerd.
Yeah.
That's how I always perceived like a scientist to look. Like if you enjoyed like maths or science, you had to look like her.
Yeah, but be pretty as well.
Yeah.
Oh, so I always thought a scientist would be like a crazy old man.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, like the mad scientist sort of look. Yeah. So I sort of like to make an impact on on the older kids who are looking to get into the industry.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about that a bit more as well, won't we? Because we do get very passionate about the fact that a lot of kids now are just expected to know what they should do, what they should want from a career.
Yeah.
And a big part of what we do is going in there and saying, we didn't have a clue, don't worry about it, you don't need to stress.
I feel like we're very real as well, and we're very honest with people. And it's not been a straight sort of career ride for either of us, has it?
No.
It's been, you know, we've crossed over into different things, we've tried loads of different things, and then finally settled in what we want to do. So it's definitely not been sort of the typical straightforward ride for us.
No. But yes, so if we talk a little bit more about what we do at a weekend, that's the exciting part of Think Forensic.
Well, so, you do. I don't work weekends.
Annie refuses to
I'm
work
like,
weekends.
if you need me at a weekend, at a push, I will do it if you're desperate, but just stick me to weekdays. I like my weekends off.
Which is fair enough, to be honest. But as Annie mentioned, a big part of Think Forensic is the build-up of staff. And they come from loads of different disciplines. So we've got a pathologist, we've got someone that specialises in knife crime, and she's actually created a set of kitchen knives for the home that don't do as much damage, effectively, if you were to be stabbed by someone.
So is that if you are living with someone who
in a
is...
domestic abuse relationship? Yeah.
That is actually very good. Yeah, that is incredible.
So we've got people like that. We've got current CSIs on the team. We've got ex-CSIs on the team. We've got a lot of police officers, both past and present. Again, people that work in the police force sometimes get a bad rap from people. And I think working with us just gives them a fresh perspective, really. A lot of them say that they really like it because they're not actually getting shouted at and insulted in the street. It's like a positive thing.
Yeah, positive impact.
Yeah, positive impact. So we've got forensic scientists that work in the field. We've got some people that work in labs. So the team are super varied, but because of that variation, it means that obviously everyone has different jobs and works different hours. So what we do at Think Forensic is at a weekend we hold workshops and events for the general public, so you can get them on Virgin Experience days and that kind of thing. But then you will have specific people with different specialisms at that workshop, and we effectively hand out the dates to all the staff and see when they're available. So some people, it's really interesting because some people on the team have met each other like once, and then other people tend to work with people more commonly, if that makes sense. So like Vicky on the team I work with quite regularly, Angela, but then there's some of them that you like hardly ever see.
Yeah, I think as well, I'm sure I am the longest
serving member.
I'm the longest member of Think Forensic. Yeah. So I can't work out exactly how long I've been there, but me and Ree from the office were trying to work it out the other day because I needed it for something. And we were saying, right, well, in this year you were there, and my emails go back to this day, and my first wage slip, I think, was on this day. Does this make sense with you? And does this line up?
Your first wage slip, because I'm a nightmare.
And it was from Steer Clear, not Think Forensic. Yeah. So I was searching back on Think Forensic for my wage slips, because we get them by email, and then I thought, actually, it's not Think Forensic, it will have been Steer Clear back then. So I went back and we worked it out, and I'm sure I was there when I was about, I think, 18, 19.
Yeah.
So absolutely ages ago. So I feel like I've been there through the whole transition.
Yeah, for weekends as well, we still have quite a lot of work experience students. We have quite a lot of people that are on placement at college. And it's really valuable for them because effectively what we do is a CSI experience. So we go in the morning or the afternoon, and you will learn a few techniques similar to what we do when we go out to schools and stuff.
And these are at our own crime scene centre as well, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's all, well, the crime scene centre is based in Huddersfield. So you learn about a case study, which again, we're allowed to talk about because one of our team worked on it. She was the lead detective. And then after that, you learn how to fingerprint on different surfaces, loads of different forensic techniques, which again are all legitimate and used in the field. And then after that, we actually do let you go and process your own crime scene, which is generally where everyone gets very excited.
Everyone loves it, don't they? Getting kitted up in the white suits and
I'm going to say
it's
the only time that people are quite excited about putting like full PPE on.
Yeah.
I think post-COVID, everyone's been a bit fed up of masks and gloves and stuff like that. But in this case, everyone's like, take a photo of me.
Yeah.
So yes, and then we have developed, as it has over the years, we've developed more and more content. So we now cover content that looks at ballistics, linguistics. We look at art fraud and art crime with a local artist called Sean. So Think Forensic effectively just does a bit of everything.
Covers all forensic subjects now.
Yeah, which I think is why I like it so much, because there's so much variety.
Yeah, I think when I first started was when we were just starting to talk about entomology, which is the study of insects. And I think I was probably one of the first people to work on the entomology presentation back in the day.
But yeah, so if you tell us about you, Annie, what gives us the right to be talking
about true crime?
Yeah, talking about true crime to everyone.
So I would go back right to probably my school days to sort of put this into context. And at school, pretty much like you, I wasn't amazing at anything. There wasn't anything that stood out for me. Sorry. Oh no, you said you didn't like it, not that you weren't good at it.
No, both is true.
So I think that I didn't really have any idea of what I wanted to do. And when you are in sort of year 10 and 11, you do your work experience. In year 10, I did my work experience in a hairdresser's.
Okay.
And I actually quite like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, I could go down this
What was
avenue.
it about the hairdressers? Was it the fact that you were around people?
Yeah.
Was it that? Yeah, okay.
I think it was the people side of it, because I really liked being sociable. I've always been quite a sociable person.
Yeah.
And so when it got to year 11, I thought, well, let's have a look at college options. I knew that I wasn't going to go to sixth form or anything like that. And I don't know if it's just because like my friends were doing it, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a beautician. I'm going to study beauty therapy and I'm going to be a makeup artist.
Okay.
So that is what I was pretty much adamant on. And I went to college in Sheffield for that, and I did 2 or 3 years there.
My knowledge of makeup at this point is like Dream Matte Mousse was at school.
Yes.
It was Dream Matte Mousse.
The foundation lips.
Yeah.
The little thin eyebrows.
And obviously I wasn't that cool. But anyway,
obviously
you carry on.
I was. So I'd done all that, and then I actually went to work in the beauty industry, and I just thought, you know what, this isn't for me. It's not really what I want to do. So I had to then sit down a little bit later on. I think I went to college at maybe 15, so I was probably 18 by this point, and thought, I need to make some sort of decision.
It's mad though, isn't it? That like even at 15, you're making like pretty big decisions.
A life decision on what you want to do.
Yeah.
So we always say to people, don't we? It's okay if you don't know what you want to do, or if you're a bit older and you want a career change. Like it's always all right to swap over, isn't it, and try different things out.
And equally, like if you think you know, and then you try it and you go, oh God, no, this isn't what
You'll
I thought
see our
it would
stories.
be.
We've done that loads of times, haven't we? Thought, no, this is
I'm
not
not
for
sure.
me.
I'm not sure.
So I had to think back to school and thought, what did I actually like doing? And this again was just at the time when forensic science had sort of made a big boom, and everyone was talking about it. CSI had just come out. Mm-hmm. There was all the true crime stuff that people were watching, all the American ones.
Yeah, I do think there was definitely a boom with true crime documentaries. Almost. I know there's always been bits, but it does seem like they kind of came
all of a sudden. It was just there, weren't it?
Yeah.
So I thought, I like science, and forensics was obviously this new up and coming thing that everyone was interested in. So I thought, what about forensic science? At the time I was living in Sheffield, and I thought I'll have a look on Sheffield Hallam University, because there's no way I would get any grades to get into University of Sheffield. And I thought, right, let's have a look at their science courses, and they had forensic science. So I thought, this is perfect.
Yeah.
But I don't have no A-levels.
Okay.
I only have GCSEs at this point. How
and
am
your
I
your college degree did not.
Oh, that's not going to give me no UCAS points. So I thought, right, I'm going to ring up the university and say to them, look, I want to study forensics. I've basically got no qualifications. how can I do it?
But I'm very enthusiastic.
So that's what I did. And I think they must have thought, who the hell is this girl ringing up and being like, right, I want to do this. How am I going to do it? And they actually said to me, if you study an extra year at university, you can do what they call a foundation degree. So my foundation degree was in biosciences, and that covered chemistry, physics, biology and maths all in 1 year.
That just really scared me.
That did. So after all those years, well, I say all those years, I'd been in education. My last proper education was sort of 15 years old, like academic.
Yeah.
And then this now was sort of maybe 19.
Yeah.
And I was thinking,
intense.
What am I... am I going to be good at going back to uni? Yeah. Am I going to get back into it okay? And they actually classed me as a mature student at that age.
That's so depressing.
I know. They was like, oh, you're a mature student. I thought, are you actually serious? So I did my foundation degree and I worked really, really hard at that and I got a really good grade. But I thought I needed to. I'm not one of those people where intelligence comes natural. I have to work at it. There was people I went to school with who would not revise, not study, and they would always come out with good grades.
Yeah,
that's not me.
Frustrating. Yeah.
That is not me at all. I have to work at it. So I finished my foundation degree, and at this point I started, I think it might have been before I started uni that I started with Think Forensic, and I just started as doing some work experience, and it was a lady that I knew who...
It was when you were working in the pub,
got a job, I'd got a job in a pub, and a lady came in and she said, what are you doing? You're always studying. So I was behind the bar and I used to have my laptop on the side, and if there's no customers in, I used to be typing away on it, and she said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I want to study forensics, and I need to do as much work as I can. And she said, well, I'm in the police, or ex-police, I think she were at the time. I've just started work for this forensic company and you should come along for a day. I'm going to talk to my boss. And it was really funny because she didn't really give me an option. I was like, oh, okay. And then I thought, that's really good. And I ended up going for a couple of days. I think I only did about 2 days work experience. And Sue said to me, right, when are you coming properly? Are you going to get on board? And I said, yeah, 100% I'm coming. So I ended up meeting some really good people through that, and people in the industry that did help me along my sort of degree. And then I finished my my foundation degree, and that got me straight onto my forensic science degree. So I stayed at Sheffield Hallam University, and it was actually a 4-year course. So forensic science was 3 years of university work and a year placement, which is I think what it normally is for a degree.
You see, mine was just 3 years. I think I could have picked to do an extra year.
Yeah, so
but yours wasn't an optional.
Yes, the placement year was optional.
Oh, okay, it was.
Yeah, but the teachers had said to us, well, the lecturers said, it is good to get work experience in that field because it is very technical. It's obviously very scientific.
Yeah, and there's
You're
a lot of
going to need experience.
Disciplines, isn't there?
So I did my my undergraduate degree course in forensic science, and it got to the end of that, and I thought, I just had this idea in my head that I was going to go and work for the Forensic Science Service. Okay. And at the time, the Forensic Science Service had all the exhibits all come into them, and they would all be analysed in the same
like
place.
One
and
central
it was fairly local
processing.
Yeah, a bit of like a local hub.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, I'm going to go and work there. And I think it was the year that I graduated, the Forensic Science Service shut down and everything got sent to individual labs all over the country.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, well, that's that one out of the window. Then what am I actually going to do now? So I sat back and had another little think about it.
Just another little thing.
And I was thinking, oh, God, Lord, what now? Like, what else can I possibly do? I've just done this 4-year degree. I need to go into this.
Yeah, there has to be something.
Yeah, there's got to be something I can do. And I saw a job, and it was advertised for the Ministry of Defence Police, and that was a firearms officer for counter-terrorism. I thought, this is up my street. I could do this.
You really go from like one extreme to the other as well, don't you?
But I feel like it is along the same.
Well, it is.
Lines.
But I feel like you've done a year of like maths, science, biology, chemistry, and then you're like,
right, I need to go and fire a gun now. Yeah. So I actually went to London, went to Essex, and did some training down there. And by the end of it, I was the only woman that was left. So I did my fitness tests, and I felt really isolated.
Yeah.
I was on the I had to like sort of stay down there, yeah. And it was all men. Not really that many people spoke to me because at the time, the men could all share accommodation down there.
Ah, okay.
And because I was a woman, I was separate.
Yeah.
So I had my own little sort of, it was like a little student room while I was training. But it meant that all the stuff and the activities that happened after.
You don't naturally integrate then, do you?
So I didn't really integrate into it. No. And I did feel very, very on my own down there. And I thought, oh God, if I go into this career, is this going to be, is this going to be me?
Yeah. I think it's difficult as well when it's something like that where you are like training. It's not like you can go out and it's not like your first year of uni when you can go out and get drunk and then just get on with it. Yeah. You're there for a purpose. You're there to get through something.
So I was actually having food, gym, like just making sure I'd kept my training and my fitness levels up.
So then you are
healthy.
Just on your own, really, aren't you?
And then I was just about to finish doing the training and I actually decided to come back up north. So we love the north. It's much more friendly. Yeah. So I came back up and I did my master's in forensic anthropology at Huddersfield University. And while I was at uni, that's where I met my partner. And then I've never left Huddersfield. So I've now been here for 6-7 years, I think. So yeah, I'm just here now. I'm just staying in Huddersfield. Yeah. So when I finished my master's, well, to start with, I actually came back up to do a master's in forensic entomology, which we've just touched on. It is the looking at insects. And I thought that is what I want to do. I want to have a look at insects and, this is going to be my career path. I did probably like 2 or 3 classes. And I thought, this is not for me. And I remember sitting in the classes and it was just going over my head and just over my head. And
there's nothing worse when you're like really trying to concentrate. You're like, I've picked this. This is what I want. You've got to be able to get it. And then I
didn't have a clue. No. I'll be honest, I sat there and I thought, I have no idea what I'm doing. I couldn't even remember the right names of the insects. I couldn't remember anything.
Did you have to remember like the Latin name and then the regular
it was
name?
They say it to us in all the Latin name. And my lecturer was actually Italian as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Added pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, I can't do this.
No.
So I went to one of the other lecturers and I was like, please let me on. Please let me do it. So our forensic science, the masters is technically you do forensic science for 2 modules. Okay. So you do like advanced forensic science, so advanced biology, chemistry, and things like that. And then your final third of the year, you go off and you specialise.
Okay, right.
So I'd already done the bulk of the course.
Yes, you've then just got to...
I could decide if I wanted to go into, I think it was entomology, anthropology, there was DNA, and there was something else as well, and I can't remember what it is. And I thought...
Obviously not a good option.
I can't go into the DNA because it's very technical and mathematical, and I weren't very good at that side of it.
Yeah.
I thought, right, anthropology. So I just remember going into the office and I said, please let me on, please let me change, please, please, please. And she was like, right, let me look into it, I'll, leave it with me and we'll sort something out. Don't worry about it. And then in the end, she was like, "Yes, you can come on to mine."
Such a relief.
Thank God for that. So
no more bugs.
I then went on to do forensic anthropology. And at the end of that, because I'd swapped around so much, again, I was like, what am I going to do? By this time, I think I was nearly 27.
Okay.
Or I might have been 27 and nearly 28.
Such a mature student.
Yeah. And I thought, right, I've not decided what I want to do my whole career. I need to do something. Yeah. And I'd actually signed up to a company, an international company, to work in disaster management. And I signed up with them, I think in maybe July. And then in September, I'd finished my master's and I finished on the 17th of September. And on the 18th of September, I got called out to my first major crime scene.
So when you say disaster management, to anyone else that obviously I know now, but to anyone else that kind of sounds like you're going to go out and make sure that things aren't going to happen. So like a natural disaster, you'd be like, put these flood defences in place to make sure
that
they
sounds? Yeah. Disaster management.
You manage it. But it's not that. So
it's not. So it's basically incident response to disasters that happen. So if there's anything that happens all over the world, so like big things, it could be natural disasters, it might be things to do with terrorist attacks, usually where a lot of people died, then I will get called out.
Yeah.
And you know, we do quite a few different roles. I'm not specifically do anthropology in that. There's sort of search and recovery, there's processing personal effects, there's gathering evidence, there's photographing. It's sort of like everything in one. And because I get to go out to the crime scenes, I really like it. So we touched on the scientists that work in the lab.
Yes.
Everyone thinks all scientists just work in the lab, and I get to go out to the crime scenes, and I never know what's going to happen from one day to the next. And some people that might sound an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, really daunting.
Yeah, but I love that. You know, I don't know when I'm going to be going out to work. I don't know when I'm going to be coming back from work. I don't know what I'm going to be going to.
How long are you going to be there for?
Yeah, and I really like that. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. So I work in disaster management. But as far as my work goes, it is quite private. I can't tell you exactly anything that I've worked on. I can't tell you exact jobs that I do.
Which students hate whenever we go
they
anywhere.
Do, don't they? They want to know.
Yeah, she tells them all of the cool stuff, and then she's like, yeah, but I can't actually tell you.
Yeah, I can't actually tell you what I do. I can't
tell you what I've worked on. And they're like, yeah, but what's the worst case?
What's the worst thing you've seen?
What's the worst thing you've ever seen? What's the best thing you've ever seen?
Yeah.
And you're like,
I'm like, well, I can't really tell you. And they're all
no
just like,
comment,
oh.
No comment.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's me, and that's where I'm at now. And yours is a little bit different, isn't it? We've sort of took the same paths as in weaving around, but ended up in similar but different destinations.
Yeah. So I'll give you a bit of my background, and then the one thing that I think we're most similar in, which we haven't really touched on, is the just trying things and getting like work experience and stuff. But yeah, so in terms of my background, anyone that knows me, again, will know that I was not destined for a scientific career. But yeah, anytime I talk about work to anyone that I know, and even people that don't know me as well or saw what I was like at school, are now like, oh my God, yeah, that absolutely fits you. Like, it's perfect.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think because of the variation and because of the amount of kind of freedom we have. But if we reverse back to school, I was actually the polar opposite of what I am now, believe it or not.
Really? At school?
Yeah.
See, I can't imagine you any other way because I've met you like this. Yeah. So it's just you.
No, honestly. In fact, I was at a family do when we were talking about it the other day because I was that shy as a child. So primary school, I never heard a peep out of me. I was like teacher's pet. I was actually really scared of most social situations.
I just can't imagine this. I can't picture this in my head.
Because I didn't like other kids. They were too much for me.
Right, okay.
And I was really quiet. So when I used to go to somewhere fun, like a garden centre, I used to take a clipboard and I would write down all the risks and basically create a health and safety plan.
For the whole family?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
And then we'd have to like go through it, and then I'd be like, yeah, okay, so we can go to the aquatic centre, then we can spend this amount of time here.
Please tell me your mum and dad kept these little risk things because I need to see them.
I think my grandma has still got a clipboard somewhere, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much I was actually writing down and how much I was just like ticking and looking important. Maybe that's the key thing that stayed, the wanting to look important. But yeah, so I was really quiet at especially primary school, got to secondary school and gained a bit of confidence.
Secondary school's brutal though, isn't it?
And again, my friends would say that I was a real weirdo at school. I just not quite found
self-confessed weirdo.
Well, yeah. And I just didn't really know where I fitted. I got on with everyone really well, so I will claim that I was friends with the cool kids in school despite being a weirdo, but I just never really knew where I fitted. And again, I still got on really well with the teachers and preferred like the company of older people, like
actual adults.
Yeah, actual adults. And some may say that that's now because of my emotional intelligence, Annie. Because I would say that is
I'll take it as a compliment because you like my company, so that means I must be
very intelligent. But yeah, so I was a lot more creative at school. I did art, I did drama, I loved English language, and I remember my English teacher actually saying like you could write academic books and things for English, and me thinking like, but I'm not academic.
Yeah.
So how would I ever do that?
But you're good at the writing side of it,
I was good at writing. So I think that's, as soon as someone says something to you like that at school, you kind of just run with it, don't you? You just like, right, okay, well then I guess that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So when it came to picking A-levels, I stayed at the school that I was at. The sixth form was attached. And I chose geography, which quickly got dropped, psychology, English and art. Again, I'd always been told you're not going to get a job in art, so don't bother going down that path. Yeah.
Who had told you that? Like art teachers at school, or like?
Well, I think it's just a general, like, if you want to make any money in the world,
don't do art.
Don't do art.
Yeah.
It's a nice little hobby, and you can be creative, but you can't really get a career out of it.
Right. Okay.
So I just kind of, then I loved psychology, but I really struggled with the names of people and the dates of studies.
Right.
So although I really loved psychology, I knew that was like my downfall in that. So English just became then the one that I enjoyed and was like best at.
Yeah.
So from then I decided to go to university. Go to university primarily because you're going to be working for the rest of your life. Like, we're probably going to live to quite an old age based on how things are going.
So you just wanted to knock those 3 years off.
So I just thought, if I can go to uni, knock down 3 years of work, it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
Which probably isn't the right attitude.
True, though.
But yeah, that's genuinely which again is the kind of thing that we do talk about when we go into schools and colleges.
Yeah.
Like you said, we're just honest. I'm not going to lie and say that I had a definite idea of what I wanted to do.
And we all got A stars in every subject, and that's what you have to get to be in science.
No, because I think if I was at school now, I'd want to hear that. I'd want to hear that you can be a bit of not a mess, but you can be a bit messy as a person and not quite know what you want. So yes, I went to York St John's, and I studied English. Although I do that, I enjoyed the uni, but I preferred York as a place. I love York as a place. Yeah. And I actually felt that was the first time that I'd felt like completely comfortable as myself as a person.
Yeah, because I feel like uni's different.
I remember going to a couple of unis. Like I visited Lancaster, and I was in like little velvet shorts with tassels and tights, and my mum was just like, you can't go here. Like, it's like collegiate, everyone's in tracksuits or pyjamas, and you're just like, you just don't fit in.
You don't fit in here. No.
And I remember thinking, to be honest, like, she's right.
She's right.
So studied English language and linguistics, which most people think that makes me like a genius in terms of being bilingual and knowing like a few different languages, but that's not the case at all.
I'd expect you to know a few languages. When you first said it to me, I was like, she definitely speaks something.
No. I'm awful at accents. I could not even do Spanish back in school. However, I then did sign language, so I know BSL. I'm a lot more ropey than I used to be now, because we used to have to do it to camera, and all of our like exams were effectively us signing to camera constantly. Right. So I was a lot more fluid at it then than I am now.
So you could have like basically signed, if I'm talking now to the camera, you could have signed it to the camera as well.
Yes. Yeah. Slowly, but yes.
If I was talking a bit slowly.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was kind of one of our modules. But I was really interested in the relationship between people and language. So that's what I've always been interested in. So it was more specifically, I actually did my dissertation on swearing.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah, it was really good fun. Well, good fun. It started looking at accent and dialect, and how, without thinking, your brain like edits and changes with your language.
Right.
So when you speak to your family, you will probably be a bit more broad or speak in the way that they speak.
Yeah.
My mum and her family are from London, so my mum always goes more Cockney whenever she talks
she's around
to them.
her own family.
And I just find that really interesting, that without thinking, that's what our brain kind of
you
falls
just switch,
into.
yeah.
And then again with swearing was very not okay in our house. But with my friends, I used to swear quite a lot.
Yeah.
But again, I never really slipped up at home, and your brain just naturally kind of
can just flick between the two. Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I concentrated on at uni. Just a lot of people, the people side of things, but then had no idea really what I wanted to do, but wanted to stick with the creative part of the English.
Yeah.
And like you, loved people and wanted to be around people and be personable.
Yeah.
So then decided to work for a film and script writing company, obviously.
So that's just very different from now as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've had a few jobs in between post-uni, but what I discovered is that I like marketing something that I care about.
Okay.
So I had a couple of jobs as a marketing manager. And what I've learned is that the higher up you go in that world, the more corporate it becomes. And I don't like that side of things.
Right.
I prefer marketing something for good reason, if that makes sense. And so a lot of the stuff that I've then worked on and been most passionate about has come from the more arty side of things.
Yeah.
Mixed with marketing rather than just straight hard SEO, PPC, that kind of thing. I'm not results driven, I'm people driven.
Yeah.
Which I think is really useful to have figured out, because I could have just stayed in that marketing world.
Yeah.
But ultimately it wouldn't have made me want to get out of bed in the morning every day and be excited about what I do now. So left the marketing world, was in a bit of a pickle in terms of what I wanted to do. So figured I would just try as much as I could. Thought about teaching, but also knew that it's a lot of admin and it's very difficult these days. And
you would have been such a good teacher though, especially like primary school teacher.
Yeah. But a lot of the time you just can't do what you want in terms of...
Yeah, I suppose you've got to get the qualifications to go behind it as well, aren't you? And
then
it's like...
it was a lot. I didn't know whether I wanted to do the going back to school part of it. And also, when I say do what you want with the kids, what I mean is like... you can't just go on a trip or spend a day not on curriculum. Yeah. I think I'd like to teach in a way that probably wouldn't fit the way that the curriculum has to be in the UK. So actually found Think Forensic. And Think Forensic at the time were offering a role, and it just said be good with people, enthusiastic, work with children and adults, and be able to drive, I think, were the necessities.
Oh, and you were like, that's me.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
I can do that. Again, turned up, and it was a day working at a community library, and it was a family day. So we'd gone out to a local library, and there were just loads of kids with their parents doing a mini CSI.
Sounds like my idea of a nightmare. A library with a lot of children and the parents as well. No.
Yeah, and I absolutely loved it. I got stuck in straight away because I had done some voluntary work at primary schools in the past. So I was familiar with the kids and stuff. Loved it, got straight into it. And then at the end, much like with you, Sue was like, yep, so great, when are you coming back? Yeah. And I was like, what are the next steps?
And she was like, there's no next steps, you're in.
Yeah. She was like, we like you.
Part of the team.
If you like us, come back again.
No.
And so initially started out working weekend events, being one of what we call our TLCs, which
did you introduce the TLCs? Because I've never heard of the TLCs before, and then you appear and you're like, yes, everything's got names and these initials. I'm like, I have no idea what one of those is. I just come in, work, and leave. What am I?
Technical logistics crew is the TLC.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's quite good.
Because we didn't want to just say people that work behind the scenes, because they're not behind the scenes.
So what's my letters?
I'm not sure we've given you letters. Oh. You would. Well, you're just more of a presenter. You just be a presenter. There's presenters and there's TLCs.
Work on a new name for it, because a presenter sounds very boring compared to a TLC.
Oh, okay.
So I want to be more interesting.
Well, if you work some weekends, you can be a TLC as well if you like.
I'm good. I'll pass on the TLC to have my weekends off.
So I started working weekends as a TLC, and then quickly said a lot of, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, but Sue had a lot of outdated content in terms of branding of Think Forensic. it's such a long-standing company that you just don't have time for the little things like the marketing bits that I am precious about.
Yeah.
So initially I just said, do you mind if I just take some things home on a weekend and fix them, make them look pretty? And they were like, well, yeah, if you want to do that, then absolutely.
Get on with it.
Yeah, get on with it. And then I think I came back and they were like, oh, actually, okay, yeah, that's quite good. And from that point they were then like, we could actually do with someone doing the social media and doing the marketing for us.
See, I feel like it fits in really nice with you because you've got the like art background where you can sort of design logos and
do the wall murals at work,
the wall stuff, like the presentations, make things more visually appealing.
Yes.
And then now you've got the knowledge behind it as well. I feel like it's a bit of a like all-rounder, aren't you?
Yeah, bit of an all-rounder.
All-rounder,
yeah. And so my role now has just developed from there. So we now go out into schools and things. In terms of the forensic side of things, the linguistics discipline of forensics is huge.
People don't know that either, do they?
No, not
People
at all.
wouldn't say. I think when you think of forensics, you probably think like maybe biology and looking at blood and DNA or chemistry and testing things.
It's the more scientific side of things.
But whereas linguistics is actually a big part of forensics that people don't know about.
So it's everything from handwriting analysis to text messages, creating a corpus of language so that we can build up effectively a profile of someone. It's even down to sound waves and the way that sound travels. A lot of times when you're getting like, what do you call them? When witness statements.
Yeah.
When you get witness statements from people, you have to factor in people-based
like errors.
Errors. So where they were, how the sound has travelled based on where they were in relation to what has gone on.
Yeah.
Things like that. There's loads of like technical elements that also fit with the people side of things, which I like, the psychology and then the language.
Yeah.
And equally down to interview techniques. Interview techniques have to be well thought out and prepped before. It's not like on the telly when they just sit them down in a room and then they're like,
and then
right,
go in
shall
on
I be
him?
bad cop?
Yeah,
you be good
bad cop.
Yeah, let's go in. There's a lot more to it, and I think that I've been able to bring those elements to Think Forensic because there are that and the art fraud and art crime. There's a lot that we've kind of not really done with Think Forensic before that I've been able to kind of say, oh, why don't we give this a go? Which then works nicely when we go out and tell people about it because it does just show you another route that you can go down.
Yeah. And there's loads of branches that we cover that people have never, ever heard of. Yeah. There's so many.
There's so many. And like ecology, there's then botany, geology, there's the study of soil, pollen, there's all sorts.
There's a study for everything
in
forensics, literally everything.
Yeah.
So that's basically where we're at now with our careers, isn't it? And how we met and how we came together. The next episode that we are going to be doing will be a case study for our first one.
So we won't just be rambling on about us.
Yeah, that's enough about us for now. It feels weird doing a full episode on yourself.
It does.
And we've managed to talk we're on like 52 minutes just for talking about ourselves and our background. So you'll probably not hear us discussing much about our careers from now. But
it's good for context so that you know who we are and what we're going to be doing. But no one needs to know our whole history.
Our whole life story. I think I've given my whole life story. So, one thing we didn't touch on there that we always talk about is like our volunteering stuff that we've done as well.
Yeah, so, I was going to say, don't forget to tell them that you used to be an assistant embalmer because I find that really cool.
So when I first started university and I thought, could I actually deal with a dead body? What if I do this 4 years and then I see a dead body or I see some blood and I think, oh no, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. Like, I've just wasted 4 years of my life. Well, probably 5 years, including my foundation degree. So I actually decided to go and do some work experience as a embalmer in a funeral director's. So I didn't go in as that. I just rang up someone who also came in the pub where I worked, had opened a funeral director's, and I remember saying to her, can I come and do a bit of work experience with you? And I ended up going out with her and helping assist on the embalming. And so that obviously got me my my experience with seeing dead bodies and gory stuff.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I also went back to my secondary school to work as a science technician.
I can't believe you did that.
I can't believe I did that. Like, all my old science teachers were like, what the hell are you doing here?
Why are you here?
Why are you here? And why are you in a lab coat? And I was like, I am your technician for today. Yes. What would you need for your lesson? And they just looked at me like, what the hell? So yeah, I didn't do that for very long, but I just got a bit of experience here and there. And then in my personal time, outside of obviously true crime and forensics, I do actually work for a homeless charity, and we go out every week providing outreach to the people on the streets of Huddersfield. So it might not just be people who are homeless, it's people that are in need and struggling, which there are a lot more people now. And they might need food, they might need toiletries, they might need help with, sort of housing appointments, things like that. So I help them from start to finish.
Life admin, like, even for people that have seemingly got their shit together, is really difficult.
Yeah.
So I think for people that are struggling anyway, it's like invaluable to have someone like you there.
So we do some like fundraising as well. We do charity walks, raising money. And I've also last year worked for a domestic violence charity, helping women who were in domestic violence situations. So like getting them rehoused, getting them away from the perpetrators, helping them out, and usually with their children as well when they've like escaped from that environment with the children. So yeah, that's sort of my
bit of everything
work on the outside of what I do in forensics.
Yeah, and similarly, when I was thinking about teaching, I also did some work for a couple of charities. So I worked with a hospice, I worked with a brain injury unit.
That one sounds really interesting.
It was, and it gave me a real fresh perspective because, like you do with everyone, you do judge people.
Yeah.
And I remember there being one guy, and he sounded like he was drunk.
Yeah.
And if I'd have come across him in the street, I probably would have been a bit wary.
Yeah, and thought, as he had a drink.
Yeah, am I going to be safe? When actually I would have never have realised, but it was just due to a brain injury.
Yeah.
So I think that gave me a really valuable perspective, which again, you've just got to try, you've just got to give it a go and see.
See, when I was at London Fashion Week, like a month ago, I met one of the girls there who had actually had a brain injury.
A model?
A model there. And it went, I think it was misdiagnosed, I'm sure she said. And she's got her story on Instagram, and I was looking at that and thinking, oh, wow.
Yeah, you just never know.
I thought of you straight away with obviously your brain injury.
The unit.
No. Your work that you've done. Yeah, and I thought of you. Yeah. So I'll have to send you that story over actually, because you'll find it quite interesting.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
So that's enough about us.
I'm going to say yes. So it's all very fascinating, and hopefully you have enjoyed listening to a bit of our background, knowing that you can be messy as a person and still get to where you want to be. And hopefully now you have a bit more of an insight as to what to expect from the upcoming episodes.
Yeah, so we've got a few exciting things coming up. We have one of the most exciting that I'm really looking forward to is CrimeCon this year. So we are both going to be at CrimeCon.
It's like Comic-Con, but for crime.
For crime. And we're both going with Think Forensic, and we're also there as content creators with the podcast too. So big shout out to CrimeCon for inviting us.
Thank you very much.
And by the time this episode comes out, it will literally be in a couple of weeks' time that we'll be there.
So we're going to vlog it while we're there, aren't we? We're going to be getting loads of content. Obviously, I'm all over the social media stuff.
Yep.
So we're going to try and get as much as we can while we're there. But we then are planning on doing an episode where we just effectively debrief and talk about all the cool people we've met.
Everyone we've met at CrimeCon, because I think that'll be a really good, interesting episode as well. Because when you look through the list of people that are going to be there, and you look through the guest speakers, oh my God, some of those on there sound absolutely unreal.
People that have worked in Scotland Yard for over 20 years, people that have done, how many?
Is it 23,000 postmortems or something?
Unreal.
Crazy.
So we're going to come back with absolutely loads to talk about there. And I think the last thing we just want to mention is the fact that as we go forward with the podcast, obviously we're a new podcast.
Yeah.
We are going to be talking about serious topics within forensic science. We are going to be talking about things that are quite graphic or gruesome. And every case that we talk about, we have studied ourselves to the best of our ability, and it's all come from sources that we deem as legitimate as possible, effectively. So just as a bit of a disclaimer, that it's all come from us and our own research. Yes, we're going to throw in opinions probably from time to time, but again, we will say that this is our opinion
on this. Yeah. So a little bit of I know you hate this word, but a bit of a trigger warning there. Beth was like, I hate that word.
I was like, can we please just
not say trigger warning?
Disclaimer or...
and there we go. I've gone and said it. I've said it. Okay. So yeah, there's your trigger warning. And if you are watching us on video, so if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel, give us a like, leave us a comment. And we want you to get involved as well. So over on our social media, we want you to message us, comment on our stuff, let us know if there's any cases that you want us to cover.
Anything that you watch or listen to, we want to know about it.
And recommendations as well. So if you've watched something that's really good and you think could be a good topic maybe for the podcast, you want to talk about it in more detail, you can send us your questions in. Literally anything you want to message us with, just message us. Yeah. We want to hear from you all.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I'm going to my friend's tonight to watch a documentary about a cult where the woman, I think either she believes she's God or her followers believe she's God. So I'll be sure to fill you in on that one as well.
And then the one that I've been watching at the moment is, I think it's called Can I Tell You a Secret? And that is on Netflix, and that is fairly new. And some of the girls from that have been on the news. That's how I heard from it. Not on the news, like on This Morning.
Right,
and, might have been Loose Women. So I am on the second episode of that. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be touching on in one of the episodes.
So no spoilers for that one, please.
Yeah, no spoilers. But thank you, everyone, for listening to us ramble on today about our own lives. And we're looking forward to doing the case studies and getting more involved. So make sure you're following us on social media, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Bye.